Hey everyone, it's Jayla, and today I am going to be wrapping up everything I read in April. So this has been a very productive month for reading for me. I read 9 books this month, which is something that's happened maybe like twice in my life, and definitely never during this time of year. But because of everything going on, i.e. COVID-19, I have had so much more time for reading and just sitting around with a book in my face. So I have 9 books to show you today, and it's kind of a mixed bag of what I read. Some things were really good and some things were really bad, but I'm ready to share them all with you. So let's get started. The first book that I read in April was like an apocalyptic thriller type novel in the young adult genre, and that was Dry by Neil Shusterman and Jared Shusterman, which is his son. I ended up giving it 3 out of 5 stars. I really liked it in the beginning and I liked the characters, but it just got really weird. Like, not weird, it got dumb. It got really kind of dumb at a point, and from there I just couldn't like suspend my disbelief that this person would be so stupid. And it was the main character, well, one of the main characters. That was another thing I found a problem with this book, is that we started off with 2 perspectives and then randomly jumped to a new perspective like halfway, or like 100-ish pages into the book. And so I was just, and then another one after that, and then eventually I think there was one more that only had 1 chapter, but that was for some reason felt needed to be in this book. So I just didn't really like all that jumping around from perspectives when we were kind of good with what we had. And then there was just this main character, Alyssa, who I complimented on being super bright and super like clever, and then she ended up doing something so dumb. Basically, if you don't know, this book follows a girl who's living in Southern California, and she ends up kind of dealing with a water crisis in which the bordering states decide that they want to stop sending water through to Southern California. And so, like, they have no water where they are, and as everyone's starting to panic, and it kind of reminded me of what we're currently going through, which I know that this pandemic is not really similar to a drought and / water not being there at all, but it definitely, like, they described kind of going to the grocery store and everything being sold out, and, like, having to fight people to get the supplies they needed, and just, like, the desperation, and that really reminded me of currently what's going on. So with missing toilet paper and can't find hand sanitizer, and you don't have any Lysol wipes or anything like that. So those situations are very similar, and I just found it very interesting and kind of scary. So that was kind of one of the interesting aspects that kept me engaged, where other things did not. The next book I read in April was a contemporary, like a new adult contemporary. It's called Queenie by Candace Carty Williams, and I was really excited about this book. I've been wanting to read it for a while. The cover is so beautiful. Like, I love this cover. It's just one of those covers that makes me happy because, like, I can relate to this. So yeah, I've been wanting to read this for a while, and I'm not gonna say that I fully loved this book. I really did enjoy it, but there were some parts where it's just really hard to support the main character because she's just making so many bad choices. But I also understand that that's kind of the point, because this follows a woman who is like 25, and she's dealing with a very terrible breakup for her because she really thought that they were on the same page, and she just gets really like in this terrible mental health state and just kind of does some destructive things, and it's about her kind of figuring herself out and figuring out who she is after this relationship. And it's just a really rough ride. But yeah, so this kind of follows her as she's navigating life, figuring out who she is. And while I did like learning about Queenie, I liked being inside of her head. There were just some things in here that were just, woo. There was some problematic stuff, and I understand the logic of that problematic stuff. I don't want to give away anything that I don't know if it's a spoiler. Basically, she has a fear of black men. So she really only dates like people of other races, and I understand why she has that fear, but it's never really addressed in a way that like kind of helps her come to terms with, which I understand. Like, she's a growing person and she's just now kind of getting her life to where she needs it to be, but and she's only at the beginning of her journey to getting to where she needs to be, but like we really just said something in there that like we didn't ever, like, address again. And I was very upset about that. I was like, really? Like, we're not going to talk about that at all? We're just going to say it and move on? Like, yee. But the things I did like about this book were, like, her friends are amazing, except for the one friend. I liked her family. I liked just the lifestyle. I ended up giving this book, like, 4 out of 5 stars, but maybe it would be more like a 3.75 out of 5 stars, just because there were some things that I was just like, ugh. So the next book that I read was Becoming, which is washed out. Becoming by Michelle Obama, a memoir following her growing up and kind of her adult life, and then meeting her husband and becoming just like this well-known household name all over the country. And it was just really good. I gave this one 5 out of 5 stars because it was really just like a hug. Like, I just love hearing from Michelle Obama's perspective. I think she's such an amazing woman who has done so many incredible things, and she just has so much smart insight. And I don't know, like, it was really interesting to learn about, like, first of all, not even just her, like, being First Lady, which is interesting in itself, but also just who she was before that. There are so many factors in her life that really made her who she is today, and it was just so interesting to learn about that. So yeah, I really like this book. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. So the next books that I'll be showing you are books that I read for the stay-at-home reading rush that happened from April, I don't remember what the dates were, but the middle of April. So I managed to read 3 out of the 4 books that I had planned for my stay-at-home TBR, but the 4th one I did end up finishing. I just finished it at like 1 a.m. instead of 12 a.m. So the first one that I read was We Should All Be Feminist by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. And this was the book I chose for the challenge, a book that'll make you smile, because first of all, I love this woman. Like, I idolize this woman. I actually went to my school's spring graduation, which I was not graduating in, because she was the commencement speaker, which is just amazing. I begged people for a ticket to that ceremony, and finally someone had an extra one that they were willing to give me, and so I got to meet her in, like, well, I didn't get to meet her, I got to see her speak, and that was an experience in itself. It was a really good speech. So yeah, I read this. I went off on a tangent, sorry, but I read this book, and it was, of course, going to make me smile because I love her, and also because, like, the message of it is just truly simple and good. And I've seen a lot of people say things like this book was, like, just stating the obvious, which I feel like it's meant to do. I don't think it's supposed to be some deep, introspective, nuanced conversation, which actually it does kind of get into some nuance when we go through, like, cultural differences within different countries. But I think that what it's meant to be at the end of the day is, like, just, like, kind of a beginner's guide to feminism. And I really liked the way it was, like, simply laid out. I thought it was so easy to read, and it's also only, like, 67 pages, so very quick read. I did actually give this one 4 out of 5 stars. I don't remember why right now, but there was a reason. Next, I read The Boy in the Black Suit by Jason Reynolds, and this one I read for a book that you read all in one sitting. So Jason Reynolds is one of my favorite authors. I love, like, what his message is and how he tries to write for young black kids. I just think that's super important. This was not my favorite Jason Reynolds book. I actually ended up giving this one 2 stars. I just felt like there wasn't a lot happening in this book. I felt like it was very spurred by a love interest that just I didn't see why they were so impactful in the story. I mean, I see a little bit, but I didn't fully see that. I didn't feel like it was enough. Overall, it just felt like nothing really changed at the end of it. Just like there wasn't enough character development for my taste. And I know that Jason Reynolds is very good at character development, so that was kind of disappointing for me. After that, I read The Alchemist, which I do not know how to say this name, so I apologize in advance, but Paulo Coelho? Yeah. I think a lot of people already know what this book is. It's pretty classic. I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars. I really liked this. It was such a simple story. The writing was very, like, it wasn't flowery. It was very to the point. There wasn't a lot of dilly-dally between getting to point A and B. I mean, it's a very short book. It's like 167 pages. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars just because there was a section in the middle where I just got really bored, and I was like, you're really spending all this time in the desert, not really doing anything. There was also, like, things that felt very rushed, like the love story. I don't understand how he met her one day, and then he said he loved her the next day, and suddenly they're just madly in love with each other. I just didn't really feel like, especially since we spent so much time in the desert, I feel like he could have elaborated more on that love story. I overall really loved it, and I said that this would be a book that I think I would return to many times over the course of my adult life, just to kind of, if I need to, like, remember why I'm here, and, like, find stability and comfort in something that's, like, telling me, like, you have a destiny and you just need to go for it. I read this book for the challenge, read a book set in a place you would want to go. I think that was how you say it. And this takes place it starts in Spain, but ends up moving to North Africa and Egypt. So I would not mind visiting Spain, but it's not high on my list. But I do definitely want to go to Egypt and see the pyramids someday, so that's why I chose this one. The book I read after that was not as impressive to me. I read We Are the Wildcats by Siobhan Vivian. I did not love this book. I was interested in where the story was going, but I felt like overall it just kind of didn't deliver. It didn't execute it very well. It's a story about this team of girls who all play field hockey together on the varsity team, and it follows 6 different girls as they're kind of talking about this 24-hour period in which they kind of bond. They realize that their coach, who they've been idolizing and been, like, thinking that they didn't really deserve but were so happy to have, was kind of problematic, and so we kind of just, like, follow that night where everything happens, where they bond, where they, like, start having these discussions, and it was just, like, first of all, I didn't need 6 different perspectives to find all that out. There's literally a perspective that the only thing that the girl brings to the story is that her hair is this, like, apparently very ugly blue, bright blue color, and that leads into, like, one of the ways that the coach is problematic, and I'm like, do I really need that? Did I need to follow her just for that to be the arc of the story, of her story? So that was one of the things that I didn't love about this book. I just felt like there was a lot of characters. None of them were very distinguishable from the others. There were some that were very interesting, but it wasn't enough to really save the story for me. I also felt like the part that the big thing that the girls are supposed to do about this didn't really, it fell flat for me. I didn't really love this one. I gave it 2 out of 5 stars. Next we have Down and Across by Arvin Amati, and this book, 1 star. I did not really enjoy this book. I don't understand how I can follow 320 pages of a character with no personality and no ambition. Like, it doesn't make for good storytelling. I felt like everyone in this book was a caricature of themselves, and, like, well, not everyone, but most everyone. And I was just very disappointed. He meets this, like, manic pixie dream girl who is just so over the top. Like, it just didn't feel like a real person. Even though she had more character development, no, I can't even say she had more character development. But she did have more personality to her than, obviously, because she's a manic pixie dream girl, but, like, than the main character. And she had more, like, backstory is what I'm trying to say. But she was a lot, and I don't know why the main character was attracted to her, let alone the fact that she's a college student and he's a 16-year-old boy, but whatever. So I just really did not like this story. This is another case where the book didn't really have enough development, didn't really feel like it changed. I gave this 1 star. It was pretty disappointing for a book that I've been wanting to read for 2 years. The next book that I read was And the Ocean Was Our Sky by Patrick Ness. This book is beautiful. I don't know, not enough people have been talking about this book. It did come out like 2 years ago now. Look at it. Look how pretty this is. Oh, and just gorgeous. Just look at this. Look at these illustrations. So pretty. I thought this book was enchanting, and just very interesting. I've seen people say that it was boring because it was from the perspective of a whale, which I didn't find to be the case. I thought that this book was pretty fast-paced, and, like, any kind of introspection was done well, and, like, didn't feel like I was just following a whale around. And also, these whales are not really just whales. Like, they build things, they have societies, kind of humanized in a way, which I wasn't expecting. I honestly didn't know what I was expecting going into this book. I got an arc of this book at Y'all Fest 2 years ago. I tried to read it, but it just wasn't the same. Like, the illustrations just aren't the same, and a lot of them weren't even finished, like they weren't the final sketch. So, yeah, I tried reading this, but like couldn't get into it. But then I got this one, and she's so pretty. So the ending kind of lost me, and the beginning was a little disorienting. So that's why I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. But overall, I thought this book was great. So that concludes all the books I read fully this month. But the last thing that I have is The Picture of Dorian Gray, and I've been reading this since like February, like literally Valentine's Day. It took me a while to get through because I was reading an ebook of it, and I don't particularly like ebooks, but like I would pick it up whenever I was about to go to sleep and just kind of read before going to bed. And I was really enjoying it until I got to chapter 11. Chapter 11 may have almost been the death of me. Chapter 11 just becomes this kind of zoomed out, very not focused on Dorian chapter that I just like, it was just too flowery and too convoluted for me to really like get through. It took me a really long time to get through that chapter. But I was hoping that buying the book, which I got from Book Outlet, I was hoping that buying it would help me kind of get through it, because having it physically might be better, but it didn't, because I actually only finished like reading chapter 11 last night on my phone. I'm not finished with this yet, but it is April 30th, and I only have, I don't even know. I have like 100 pages left of this, so I could probably finish it today, and then it would count for April, but I didn't want to fully count it unless I like knew that I was going to finish it, because if I have another chapter like chapter 11, I might die. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in another video soon. Bye!